hey, Steelers commies, giving out my best flight right now to the Steelers. It was a short flight, early window. And maybe a best seat is Mike Williams sitting on the plane watching the Jets.
Kyler Murray go.
He has a best flight and a best seat.
Yep.
It's so great.
Double whammy.
So happy for him.
Really happy for him. And I said this last night on my little live hit.
Fuck a red line. I catch touchdown passes.
but
in games.
Yeah. But the red line thing, you know how hard it is in the NFL mentally, and we were D linemen. There were very, very rarely was the ball snapped and everybody's watching us.
Yeah.
And, very rarely does our mistake get parsed the way a mistake that Mike Williams' mistake gets parsed. Guys are out of their gap every week. We don't know sometimes who fucked up in coverage. But if you're a receiver and, usually fans might not know he was wrong in that situation, but his quarterback aired it out. And, however you want to feel about that, he was on the wrong side of the red line. He goes to his new team. He's been in NFL purgatory his whole life, over in L.A., pre-Harbaugh, ends up in New York. That's the seventh circle of hell. And now he's got this great opportunity in Pittsburgh. When he gets his number called, there's always a little voice in your head like, you're going to fuck it up. Like, that's part of being an athlete. And I think coming off of the mistake he made that got magnified so much, to have the mental toughness to come to Pittsburgh your first week in the biggest moment in the game, get thrown a moon ball. That's not an easy ball to catch, not an easy ball to track, to come down with it, to make that play. Good on Mike Williams, who's a veteran, for putting that stuff in the past and coming out with a winner's attitude, because it is really hard to shed the loser mentality in the NFL when you lose when you lose individually.
But also, too, guys like that, like, when you know that when you're at the end of your career, the opportunity to be on a winning team and in a winning locker room are going to be very few. So you could just think about the excitement of him even going down there and being in that position, I'm on a team that's winning and they got me and they feel like I can help. Me. Yeah, I can help win. That's the best scenario, and I'm so happy for that.
Well, when you're a high draft pick, and Mike was a higher draft pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had a good career, but
expectations.
But you always have big expectations, and when you're on a team that's not winning, people blame things on you.
Yeah.
And so even though he was a good player in LA, you feel like there's always this sense of I want more, or you're part of the reason Justin Herbert hasn't turned the corner, or and then you end up on a team like Pittsburgh, to your point, and it's just about the team. It's about the team. It's not about where you got drafted anymore. It's not about the weight on your shoulders. It's not about trying to change a franchise from this team that's known to be the most fumbling ass team in the NFL. Chargering is a verb. It's like Clemsoning. And then all of a sudden, you're on this team where this is what they do. They keep games close. They're nails in tough situations. They're always going to be in it. And you can trust Mike Tomlin. So all you have to do is your job.
That's it.
And that, to me, is a beautiful, simple way to take the field. And for him, he found it. And for the Steelers, not just having to insert him in a lineup late in the game and go to him in a big situation because they're down a guy or whatever. It's also Highsmith turning his ankle, making the move for Preston Smith. You thought you were going to need him as depth because you had Marcus Golden in training camp and you needed that 4 deep. Well, all of a sudden you need him to play meaningful snaps because I don't know what's happening with Highsmith. And so from a standpoint of making a move, which I said is evidence that the Steelers think they're good, then they get it confirmed that they're pretty good because they go to Washington to win. And I'm not saying beating Washington makes you a Super Bowl contender, but what it is now a barometer to beat the Commanders. They're that kind of team now. So to go in there and win and to realize that the moves you made paid off immediately, you got to be riding high. And to me, the biggest move is the one that paid off the most. It's making the quarterback switch when you got a winning record. And people like me before the season who said Justin Fields is the guy. Now, I came around to it when they made the move, and I understood why they made the move. And it has come to fruition. It's the shots. They took too many in the second half, in my opinion. But they spent the whole second half backed up against their goal line. You got the Jaylen Warren fumble. You got the damn missed punt, fake punt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many mistakes they made where they could have packed up their tent and went home. That's not who they are. This was a gutsy win, and I don't think they win this game with Justin Fields at the helm, because, you know, a 2-score deficit when the other team goes 2 for 1 and you're down 10 points, that's not on the Steelers script the last 5 years post Ben Roethlisberger. All of a sudden they have a team that can eat a deficit up, and they can do it taking shots, and they're confident. And that's the veteran presence you need in a situation like that. So it's not all about, hey, Justin Fields isn't the guy. A lot of it is Russell Wilson is the guy.
Yeah.
And so everything that you've done the last month of the season manifested in beating a tough team. And all of a sudden you're up near the top of the AFC.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Is George Pickens the best wide receiver for them since Antonio Brown?
He is so funny.
He's so good, dude. He's so funny.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
He is great. He is a great player, but like some of the things that he does on game day, like during the course of a play, when he throws his body around, like I stumbled onto some weird George Pickens thread on Twitter where he'll like he suplexed the guy last week, like trying to clear a pile, and then like yesterday, I don't know what he was doing.
No idea.
After the interception.
No.
Like, bro, what are you doing?
When he
someone
caught
on
the
Twitter
ball.
said that you know George Pickens was in ISS a ton in
He wasn't ISS. Yeah. Yeah, ISS sucked.
Yo, and then they were like zooming in on him after one play. I think he caught the ball or something, and he really slick quickly like pops a DB like in his face mask and just like keeps it moving. And I'm just like, yo, he is so like the little angry voice that's in his head, like he agrees with it probably 85% of the time.
Yes, he's
like 85% of the time.
He's
the little devil voice that's saying, yo, do this real quick. He's like, yup, he's like, I'm with it.
He's an agent of chaos, bro. That's what he is.
Yes.
And like, it's to Bo's point. It's the ball he caught on the sideline where all of a sudden he's holding the ball with like a loaf of bread in his left hand. Yeah. He's trying to hurdle a guy while he stiff arms 2 guys, and then turns it into a face mask. Gets away with it.
It's like what a camp counselor would do, like when they're going against 10-year-olds.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I'm just gonna do some crazy
unsound shit.
Yeah, just hold it here and go woo.
I'm gonna do some unsound shit.
But the dunk in the end zone to start the game, bro, is unbelievable.
Hey, I want to say it one more time because Steelers Depot or whoever aggregated me last year and was like, "Hey, Chris Long said George Pickens has Hall of Fame potential." LOL, kind of that thing. He does, bro. There are very few guys in the NFL
like
with
high point it,
the
like
ball
that.
skills of that cat, the body control of that cat.
Yes,
dude. And when he puts it all together, and part of it is having a guy who can access the areas of the field in which he's dangerous.
Yep.
And the throws that kill people, where he's the recipient of a 50-50 ball, bro. He could go to the next level, and so. He's in the perfect place with Mike Tomlin and that group.
It's the best.
And now he's with the perfect quarterback for him.
Because he's so out there, and then he's with Russell, and Russell is like a God-fearing man, quote God.
He's out there in a different way.
In a different way.
Yeah.
It works.
I'm not saying the God stuff is out there.
No. I understand what you're saying.
Russ is definitely different bird.
He's so different. But
he's loved
sometimes it works.
Yup.
Bro, that was the best. That was the best ever. And if I'm that D lineman, like that would literally make me want to throw up seeing Russell Wilson dance like that, knowing he won a game by making me jump off sides.
Now, listen. This game could have came down to a bunch of mistakes. And it's like it did come down to a mistake, but the only good thing for a lot of the guys that made mistakes before Newton was like, we're not remembering their mistakes. You know, it could have been any one of the drop fake punt to James Pierre. Hey, listen, James Pierre drops the punt, the fake punt. This is a ball you trust an offensive lineman to catch in the NFL. So like I hated the call, but I can't argue with it being there. It's one of those things where we talk about like the Philly call in the flat against the Falcons where people were like, I hate the call. Well, it's there. You know, I hate the call. Hate it. Despise it. As soon as they did it, I was like, what the fuck are we doing? But it is there, okay? That guy could have been the asshole. He ended up being a guy who had to play snaps late in the game. Another very mentally tough moment from the Steelers, okay? Zacchaeus, our guy, muffing a punt, okay?
Off the face
He He's off the schneid because nobody's going to remember that. We'll remember the Newton offsides, although it was big. The Warren fumble could have been that moment. And so it was just a series of mistakes. It was like, who made the last mistake? And it was this poor kid, Newton, who's a rookie and has played pretty well for them. I will say this about this dude. It is a cardinal sin to jump off sides in that situation.
Dejo.
You got a long career ahead of you. You're going to be a good player. You got to put this past you. Really. You got to.
You have to.
You got to.
It's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard. You're gonna hear it. You're gonna see it. Like, you're gonna get mentioned about it for probably the next year and a half to be fair about it. But you got to move on.
It's gonna be one of your dying regrets. You're gonna say, I wish that I spent more time with my family and that I didn't jump off sides against the Steelers. But you have to get over it.
You have to. You have to, because that's bad, bro. That is bad. Do you know how
your family might disown you? Your friends all hate you now. People are going to be sending you bills for Commanders -2. But you got to get over it.
As a D lineman, in practice, this is probably one of the biggest cardinal sins that you can do. Yeah. Like, and like in most teams, if you're a D lineman and you do this in a practice scenario, the whole defense is probably on the line running for the next like 15 minutes.
We know it's the one thing. Like, we got to know situational football for sure, but this is the one thing that every last D lineman needs to know. So anyways, just mistakes at the end of this game, and I thought, like, defensively, the one thing for the Steelers that surprised me a little bit was JPJ got cooked a little bit. Joey Porter Jr. McLaurin had it out for him. You know, he wasn't the only guy that was beating him. That was a tough game from him. And then I think one thing that really mattered in this game was you didn't see a lot of TJ Watt until late in the game, right? Like, and he started to make his presence felt. Part of that was Andrew Wiley. They would have left him alone a little bit more. Andrew Wiley had played him before, done a pretty good job. I'm not saying they would have left him butt naked out there, but eventually he would have gotten his one-on-ones. And I felt like for most of the game, they were definitely chip help, paying attention to TJ. Late in the game, they couldn't in some situations, and he ended up being a big part of this whole deal. But the whole thing is, for the Commanders, Jayden didn't play his best game, still made some incredible throws, but did not play his best game. And then they had a couple guys down. Lattimore, who's going to really help them Thursday.
Yep.
Against the Eagles and beyond. That was an intentional decision to rest him this weekend. And I think same thing a little bit with Brian Robinson possibly and Wiley. So the most important game for them is going to be in now 3 days. I mean, it's just, this game is going to be huge. They can't hang their heads. They've been on a great run. They're way ahead of schedule. The win total for this team was 6.5. Okay, they're not supposed to be where they are. Don't make this game linger. This is just a game you lost. It's the NFL. You won one of these last week. And again, for Newton, who fucks the game up at the end, I'd much rather be him than Tyreek Stevenson. You know what I'm saying? There are mistakes you make where we can get over them. That's not one of those mistakes where you're like mad at the kid. It's just, it was a tough deal. And the calls. Let's finish with the calls on this game. Okay, because I thought the Ertz spot was going to be hard to overturn, just being honest. I mean, if you give it to him where he catches the ball, like immediately, maybe, but he doesn't really fall back immediately, and I think the spot was the problem. So, like, hey, if you're a Commanders fan and you think he got that first down, I'm not going to argue with you. It's just a tough deal. Yep. But I will say this, though. You didn't lose the game just because of that call. There's also a situation in the end zone where TJ Watt gets held and it should be a safety. So I could argue that, the Steelers should be defending a field goal, which would send it into overtime, right? Because it's a 1-point game. Was it a 1-point game at the end of that game or 2?
They won by 1.
1 by 1.
Yeah.
So if that safety counts, probably game changes anyways, and you're kicking to tie, not win. So there are calls that went, both ways in this game, in my opinion. That's not me trying to. I know I try to do the thing where we're like, hey, calls suck. People miss calls. We've seen that week after week, but like the game was won and lost on the field, and I thought the Steelers just had a lot of toughness, man. They had a lot of toughness in this game, and they deserve to be talked about in that light. And the Commanders are still a damn good football team.
Let me ask you a question real fast, and this is probably too early to call, but the Commanders are 7-0 against teams that are above 500. and 0-3 against teams that are below 500. Is that similar to the Dolphins team last year? Do you feel any
You saying the
similarities?
Commanders are
They're 0-3 against teams above 500.
Sorry.
0-3 against?
No,
No,
yeah.
because I thought they showed, like, listen, not the same Ravens team, but how'd the Dolphins play against the Ravens last year? You know, it's like they got blown out of the water. It's like the offense is nowhere to be found in those situations. I think the Commanders, because of the quarterback, okay, are better. Like they just are. They're more complete. The defense, by the way, continues to make plays. Mm-hmm. I thought Fowler's on fire right now. I talked about him and Dorrance Armstrong, their win rate, their pressures. Dan Quinn is getting some really good things done with this group, and they're only going to get better when they don't have St. Juste out there in some of the most important situations on the best guys. And it's like when Lattimore comes in, this is going to really help this defense. Mm-hmm. And I think when they're at full strength, they're still very good. So this isn't me making excuses for them. I saw somebody in the chat like, no excuses. Y'all love to do that. Every team has injuries. We're not making excuses. We're painting the picture. And certainly I don't, in the same hand, I'm not giving the Commanders, a pass because of the Ertz spot. To my point, there was also a call that didn't go Pittsburgh's way. Just giving you an example of why we should just pay attention to how the game played out. And so in this situation, I think the Steelers proved that they can hang with the team that, quite frankly, a lot of people thought was going to maybe run them out of the building. I talked to a few people down in Louisiana, some of my new friends that were like, hey, you need to bet the Commanders tomorrow. And I was like, I won't be.
The last thing on this game, Bo, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do we feel about the Commies heading into Thursday night and, kind of the makeup of the NFC East going forward here? Because
it's a two-team race, and I feel better than I did a month ago about the prospect of beating these guys. I think we can beat these guys. The Eagles. I think
fly, Eagles, fly.
I think, right? So I think the Eagles can beat these guys, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. I'll tell you what, if they hadn't put Cooper DeJean in the lineup and made that big turnaround they made in the last month, if they were playing the defense from the first month of the season, I'd say this might be a boat race. Mm-hmm. But things have changed.
Yeah.
So they can hang.
Last thing for the Steelers Commanders, we've got to pick our green light MRP.
Oh, good.
Had Willie Colon.
There was a guy named Louis Lips.
That was my choice, yeah.
That's really good. Okay.
Antoine Randall L.
I love Barry
Antoine
Foster.
Randall L.
I love Barry Foster. And who's that? Moelde Moore? That's a good one. LaRon Landry. Do you remember how fucking big LaRon Landry was?
He had the thickest neck.
No, Lassiter does.
Him and Lassiter had the thickest necks.
And the thing about Lassiter is, like, he's not on steroids. He just has a huge neck. That guy, LaRon Landry.
Biceps.
There was a picture of him with his shirt off, and I was like, that's photoshopped.
Yeah.
Why do you have Bill Wennington up? He's got Bill Wennington up.
That was from earlier.
No,
now I got LaRon
Let's
Landry.
see it. Let me see that. Look how big this dude was. Look at his arm. That's ridiculous, dude. That's like fake. It's like fake. Now he's not going to win MRP.
Didn't he start as a safety and then move to linebacker because he was so
and eventually they moved him to D tackle because he was just like, it's working too well. I like that name, man.
Louis Lips.
Louis Lips, bro.
Good receiver back in the day.
I had no idea that guy. Yeah, that's super random. I love the name. We'll give it to
Louis Lips sinks ships, baby.
Louis Lips sinks ships. Speaking of that, shout out to the Edmund Fitzgerald, which sank November 10th. It's the famous Gordon Lightfoot song. You know it.
Yeah, sure.
Jim Harbaugh's favorite song. It commemorates a ship that sunk in Lake Superior.
Oh.
Pretty fucking scary. Lake Superior, you think lake, but they had 25-foot seas that night.
The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria.
A totally different situation.
Oh, okay. just making sure they weren't the same boats.
So, shout out to the Edmund Fitzgerald and crew.